Which rogue is the best rogue, and which is the worst? This week we are going to see which rogue archetype is sneaking its way to the top of the ranking, and which is going to get caught with its hand in the cookie jar. Hello players and GMs, I am Reese, and welcome to another video by Jetpack7. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone, or tell you for the first time, that the Kickstarter for our new book, Blackstorm Realms, is live. We are super excited about this book and are very pleased to say that it has already been funded, and we're now working towards breaking the several stretch goals we've set forth. If you want a campaign setting that will allow you to seamlessly tie together every campaign setting ever, this is the book for you. For more information on that, check out the link to the Kickstarter in the description. And of course, thank you to everyone who has contributed thus far. We literally couldn't do this without you. And of course, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. The channel has continued to grow faster than I ever expected, and it has been an absolute pleasure to see. It is an exciting time for Jetpack7, and your contributions to this channel help us out immensely. So thank you so much for following our growth. As many of you can probably tell, I am not in the same place as I usually am in these videos. This is my bedroom. There's a possibility that I was recently exposed to COVID, so I decided to record from home to avoid spreading it to the party at Jetpack7. Just doing my part to make sure they don't have disadvantage on their book writing checks. This week we are on to one of the most popular classes in Dungeons & Dragons, the Rogue. This is a video I am particularly nervous about because I feel like the Rogue is one of the more polarizing classes out there. People love their rogues, and I know I tend to hold some relatively unpopular opinions, so I'm fully anticipating some comments about how people wish they could sneak attack me or something. But it is my job to stand strong in the face of the ill-wishers. I do it for the community, my long list of loyal followers. I am YouTube royalty and you will respect me! You will respect me! So, let's go ahead and jump into the Rogue ranking with the Rogue I think is generally accepted to be the weakest of the bunch, the Thief. The problem with the Thief is that it's, well, just not that good. The features are kind of just underwhelming across the board, especially considering the level at which you get them. To start off, at 3rd level, you gain Fast Hands, which allows you to use a bonus action granted by Cunning action to make a sleight of hand check, use your Thieves tools, or take the Use an Object action. Most of this genuinely will never come into play until you need to unlock a door in combat or something. As far as I'm concerned, the best thing this gives you is 2 attempts per turn. It's kind of nice, but super niche and not very likely to come into play often at all. Also, at 3rd level, you gain Second Story Work. This means that climbing no longer costs extra movement, and when you make a running jump, you can add your dexterity modifier to the distance. Again, pretty niche and not super likely to come into play often. Keep in mind, this doesn't grant you a climb speed. It just means that you can climb at normal speed if you are able to succeed on the check at all. And you can jump further, which helps sometimes. At 9th level, you have advantage on stealth checks if you move no more than half your speed on the same turn. This one is fine. I guess it can help with hiding as a bonus action in combat, and I suppose this kind of gives you advantage on stealth out of combat all the time if your GM is kind enough to rule it that way. My problem with this is that it limits the Rogue, a class that benefits so heavily from its mobility, to half its movement just to gain advantage on a stealth check. It just seems so counterintuitive to the way a rogue wants to play. At 13th level, you gain Use Magic Device. This allows you to ignore all class, race, and level requirements on the use of magic items. This one's pretty fun because it opens up the entire magic item table to you, but I feel it definitely isn't potent enough to make up for the rest of the features. And finally, at 17th level, you gain Thief's Reflexes. This allows you to take 2 turns during the first round of any combat, but you can't use it if you're surprised. This is an awesome feature and definitely super powerful, but getting it at 17th level just doesn't feel worth it to me. I almost wish this feature were earlier, but that may just be too strong. The Thief is really carried by the fact that the base rogue is incredibly powerful, but this archetype stands out to me as the worst by far. In 6th place, I've put probably my personal favorite rogue archetype based on flavor alone, the Inquisitive Rogue. I love this rogue because it places the power of this class in a totally different place than your standard roguish playstyle, but does end up requiring you to stretch yourself a bit too thin to be effective. This is definitely a rogue that would benefit from a more RP heavy campaign. To start off, you gain Ear for Deceit. Whenever you make an insight check, you can treat any roll of a 7 or lower as an 8 on the d20. This is basically a weaker version of Reliable Talent, but specifically for insight checks. You also gain Eye for Detail at 3rd level, which allows you to use a bonus action to make a perception check to spot a hidden creature, or an investigation check to uncover or decipher clues. This one is honestly great in combat because I've been in many different situations where a creature is invisible or hiding and I have to use my action to spot them, and many times I just end up failing anyway. This just allows you to use your probably high perception to spot a creature without expending your full action. This archetype also gets a third feature at 3rd level called Insightful Fighting. As a bonus action, you can make an insight check contested by the target's deception check. If you succeed, you can use your sneak attack against the target even if you don't have advantage, but not if you have disadvantage. This lasts for 1 minute, or until you use this feature on another creature, meaning you can get sneak attack on a creature every single round no matter what if you succeed. I love alternative ways to get sneak attack, and this one is no exception. However, while I like it, this does start to accentuate the problems I mentioned earlier. Rogues normally like dexterity and intelligence, whereas this rogue really likes dexterity and intelligence and wisdom. If you want to get effectiveness out of its features, you need a decently high wisdom and intelligence, which is naturally going to leave your dexterity a little bit lower. At 9th level, you gain advantage on any perception or investigation checks if you move no more than half your speed on the same turn. Again, this is the same problem as the Thief's feature that is very similar to this one, but I actually like this one a little bit more because this isn't really something you'll use as much in combat. Assuming your GM allows you to use this ruling outside of combat, which I think by the book is the correct ruling, you'd get a lot of value out of having advantage on basically every single perception check. Stealth outside of combat is great too, but advantage on perception checks is absolutely game-changing, especially if you've already got good perception to begin with. If you've played a lot of D&D, you know how important it is to be able to succeed on your perception checks. At 13th level, you can use an action to sense the presence of illusions, shape changers not in their original form, and other magic designed to deceive the senses within 30 feet of you. I like this ability because it doesn't just tell you what you're sensing, it isn't true sight, it just kind of tells you that something is trying to deceive you. And finally, at 17th level, you gain Eye for Weakness. While your Insightful Fighting feature applies to a creature, your sneak attack damage against that creature increases by 3d6. This can definitely make up for your lower dex, but at 17th level, you've probably increased your attributes enough that you're not really lacking on that front anyway, but at 17th level, an additional 3d6 isn't anything too crazy. It's not bad by any means, but an average of 10 additional damage per round isn't that impactful. In 5th place, I have placed the Mastermind Rogue. This rogue has probably the strongest use of its bonus action out of any of the other rogues, but it otherwise can be a little niche. To start, you gain Master of Intrigue. You gain proficiency with the Disguise Kit, Forgery Kit, and 1 gaming set, as well as learn 2 languages of your choice. In addition, you can mimic the speech patterns and accent of a creature that you hear speak for at least 1 minute, enabling you to pass yourself off as a native speaker. Honestly, it's pretty cool if you have a GM that is even thinking about this. Very rarely have I been in a game where the GM has their NPCs start recognizing regional dialects. In other words, this is niche. Cool, but niche. You also gain Master of Tactics, which is definitely the core of this archetype. Essentially, you can use the help action as a bonus action, and when you do it to aid an ally attacking a creature, that target can be within 30 feet rather than 5. This is wild. Every single turn, you can give the next attack against a certain creature advantage from 30 feet away, basically for free. The only downside is that you can't help yourself, and being the rogue, you benefit from advantage on your attacks more than most. But that is still super duper strong. At 9th level, you gain Insightful Manipulator. If you spend 1 minute observing a creature outside of combat, you can learn whether the creature is equal, superior, or inferior to you in regard to 2 of the following: intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and class levels, if any. And the DM can then choose to tell you a piece of the creature's history or personality traits. This seems like it might be cool in the right situation, but overall I just don't see much value coming from this at any point. To me, this is essentially just figuring out whether the creature in question is powerful or not. Is the random NPC we're talking to powerful, or are they just a regular weak NPC? Knowing their intelligence score or class levels basically just translates to what are we dealing with here, but otherwise won't really change anything. At 13th level, you get Misdirection, which is a fun little feature that allows you to use creatures as cover and make them take the hit. When you're targeted by an attack while a creature within 5 feet of you is granting you cover against that attack, you can use your reaction to make them take that hit instead. This can be nice if you're hiding behind your tank, or even better if you're hiding behind the enemy, which is obviously the more ideal use of it. And being able to do it as a reaction is pretty great too. And finally, at 17th level, you gain Soul of Deceit, which basically just means people can't read your mind, and if they try, you can deceive them with a successful deception check against their insight. Additionally, if someone has something like Zone of Truth cast on you, no matter what you say, it will be determined as the truth, and nobody can force you to tell the truth. So essentially, you can lie no matter how hard someone is trying to make you tell the truth. truth. The Mastermind is definitely a more socially focused rogue, which is awesome in the right setting, but in a standard game of D&D, those niche features just make it fall a bit behind the rest of the archetypes. The 4th place rogue surprised me a bit because I thought I remembered it being a bit stronger than it is, the Assassin. The Assassin Rogue offers some serious damage in the right situation, but in the mid-game its features change the tone a bit. To start off, you gain proficiency with the Disguise Kit and Poisoner's Kit, and then you gain the feature Assassinate. You have advantage on attack rolls against creatures that haven't taken a turn in combat yet, and you score an automatic critical hit against surprised creatures. This is kind of the standard Assassin feature right here. You get the drop on someone and they're just immediately dead or damn near it. Then, at 9th and 13th level, you suddenly start to get features that move away from combat. At 9th level, you gain Infiltration Expertise, which essentially just allows you to create false identities for yourself. You have to spend 7 days and 25 gold pieces to establish the history, profession, and affiliations, and then after that, pretty much just everyone believes you to be that person. You can't take someone else's identity, so no identity theft here. This one kind of feels like something you could just do without the feature. I don't know, it feels weird to me that there's a whole feature just for creating a false persona. Decent charisma and proficiency with the Forgery Kit can do this exact thing, so this feels a little underwhelming to me. At 13th level, you gain Imposter, which allows you to unerringly mimic another person's speech, writing, and behavior. You have to spend at least 3 hours observing those 3 components, and you have advantage on any deception checks to avoid detection if another creature suspects something is amiss. So this one is identity theft. I could see a bit more of a use for this one than the other. It's just kind of sad that these two were split into 2 separate features and that you don't get this one until 13th level. At 17th level, we go back to big damage with Death Strike, when you become a master of instant death. When you hit a creature that is surprised, they have to make a con save, the DC calculated by dexterity, fortunately. If they fail, you double the damage of your attack. Keep in mind, this creature is surprised, so if we go back to your first feature, this is also an automatic crit. So the damage is nearly quadrupled, which is really insane. Side note, pair this with a Grave Cleric's Path to the Grave feature and overall, I like the Assassin, but its features feel a little bit disjointed. The first and last features are obviously crazy for damage, but then the middle 2 are more focused on role-playing. I feel like maybe they should have just been combined into a single feature. I don't see how being able to copy someone's identity after 3 hours of studying them has to wait until 13th level. So yeah, not a huge fan of the middle features, but overall still a very powerful archetype. In 3rd place, I have put another one of my favorite archetypes, the Swashbuckler. I thoroughly enjoy the Swashbuckler because it completely reverses the sneaky tendencies of a rogue and encourages a more loud and proud style of play while still reinforcing the strengths of the base class. And it starts off very strong with fancy footwork at 3rd level. On your turn, if you make a melee attack against a creature, that creature can't make opportunity attacks against you for the rest of your turn. Keep in mind, you don't have to hit with that attack. This is essentially 1/2 of the mobile feat right at the beginning of this archetype, and honestly, the stronger half of the mobile feat. Also, at 3rd level, you gain Rakish Audacity, granting you a bonus to initiative equal to your charisma modifier, and an additional sneak attack condition. As long as your target is within 5 feet of you and no other creatures are, and you don't have disadvantage, you get sneak attack. It's essentially a little duelist effect here, where you get sneak attack in a one-on-one battle. At 9th level, you gain Panache, which allows you to make a persuasion check contested by a target's insight check. If you succeed and the creature is hostile towards you, it has disadvantage on attack rolls against creatures other than you for 1 minute until one of your companions attacks the creature or affects it with a spell, or until you're more than 60 feet away from the target. If the target is not hostile towards you, they are charmed for a minute and regard you as a friendly acquaintance until one of your companions harms them. At 13th level, you gain Elegant Maneuver, which allows you to use a bonus action to gain advantage on the next acrobatics or athletics check you make during the same turn. And finally, at 17th level, you gain Master Duelist. If you miss with an attack roll, you can roll it again with advantage, but you can only use this once between short or long rests. Honestly, not a super potent capstone here compared to some of the other rogue capstones, but each attack really does carry a lot of weight for a rogue, so it's better than it would be in the hands of another class. Not to mention the previous features more than make up for it, I think. The Swashbuckler kind of flips the script on what you imagine a rogue to be, and I am super down for it. In 2nd place, I put a rogue that I've always wanted to play but never have for some reason, the Scout. I was honestly a little surprised by this one, but this rogue archetype is amazing. It takes a lot of ranger inspiration and puts it with an actually powerful base class, and it works. To start, you get Skirmisher, which allows you to use your reaction to move up to half your movement speed without provoking attacks of opportunity when a creature ends their turn within 5 feet of you. This is an amazing boost for mobility, honestly. Rogues are already such a mobile class, so being able to move half your movement speed in between turns and without having to worry about attacks of opportunity is really great. Also, at 3rd level, you gain proficiency in nature and survival if you don't have it already, and double your proficiency when you make a check using either of those skills. At 9th level, you gain superior mobility, which increases your walking speed by 10 feet and also your swim and climb speed if you have them. At 13th level, you have advantage on initiative, and then you get something really insane. The first creature you hit during the first round of a combat gets easier for you and your other allies to strike. Attack rolls against that target have advantage until the start of your next turn. This feature is wild because it basically puts a big old target on that creature's head and nearly guarantees that every one of your allies is going to be able to hit it. If you don't kill it that round, you'll definitely be able to wear it down quite a bit. Being able to reduce numbers in the first round of combat is always a game changer. And finally, you gain Sudden Strike, which is a pretty fun idea. If you take the attack action, you can make an additional attack as a bonus action. The bonus action attack can benefit from sneak attack even if you already used sneak attack on that turn, but you can't use that sneak attack on the same target. So you can't just hard burst down a single creature, but you can use sneak on 2 different creatures in a single turn if the conditions are there for it. I honestly really enjoy this archetype because it just emphasizes the rogue features so well, while also opening up some unique options for a less standard rogue experience. And in first place, I have the only rogue that gets spells, the Arcane Trickster. We all know that spellcasting is strong, but put in the hands of one of the stronger martial classes in the game, it is absolutely insane. The Arcane Trickster is only a quarter caster, so it's not like they're going to be getting super crazy powerful spells, but honestly, you don't need many spells for the Arcane Trickster to be very strong. First of all, you learn Mage Hand and 2 other wizard cantrips of your choice. You also know 3 first level wizard spells of your choice, 2 of which must be from either the enchantment or illusion schools. Most of the spells you learn have to be from those 2 schools, but at 8th, 14th, and 20th level, you can choose from any school. That may sound limiting, but honestly, Illusion and Enchantment are 2 of the best schools you could choose from for an Arcane Trickster. First of all, you could get Booming Blade as a cantrip, which is just crazy, but then you can choose from spells like Disguise Self and Sleep at first level, Blur, Mirror Image, and Shadow Blade at second level. The list goes on. Basically, it's not limiting at all. Also at 3rd level, you get Mage Hand Legerdemain. Legerdemain. Essentially, you get a super mage hand. You can make it invisible, you can put an object into a container someone else is holding, you can take an object out of a container someone else is holding, and most importantly, you can use it to pick locks and disarm traps at a range. You can do all this with a sleight of hand check as you would with a normal hand, but from a range of 30 feet. This is honestly so strong. A rogue toolkit is often limited by the fact that they have to get in melee range to do all their stuff. This just completely bypasses that in the best way possible. Also, you can control the mage hand with a bonus action, so that just saves your action economy greatly. At 9th level, you gain Magical Ambush. When you're hidden from a creature and cast a spell on them, they have disadvantage on the save. This is great too. Your spell save probably isn't as high as a full caster, so being able to put them at disadvantage greatly increases their chances of failure. And lastly, at 17th level, you gain Spell Thief. Immediately after a creature casts a spell that targets you, or if you're in the area of effect, you can use your reaction to force the target to make a saving throw with its spell casting ability modifier. If they fail, the spell doesn't affect you, and you steal the knowledge of that spell if it is at least first level and of a level you can cast, but it doesn't have to be a wizard spell. For the next 8 hours, you know the spell and can cast it using your spell slots, but the creature can't cast that spell until those 8 hours have passed. You can only do this once between long rests, but this is pretty cool. Honestly, it's not super strong because at 17th level, whatever you're fighting is probably cranking out some pretty high level spells if it can cast spells at all, so losing a 4th or lower level spell slot isn't too debilitating. But considering the number of creatures in 5e that have innate spellcasting rather than normal spellcasting, this could be pretty potent. Regardless, this archetype is really insane. It does an excellent job of accentuating some of the rogue's most useful strengths, as well as adding spellcasting to an already ridiculously powerful base class. In my mind, it definitely locks in the first place out of all the rogue archetypes, and comfortably at that. Alright, that is my ranking of the rogue archetypes. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Please remember to check out our Kickstarter for Blackstorm Realms ASAP. This campaign is now running for less than a month, so be sure to contribute and get your rewards before it's too late. Next video in the series, we will be discussing the wizard's arcane rival, the sorcerer. I'm greatly looking forward to diving into those archetypes, but until then, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you around.